Coming up on TekThing, Broadpwn versus 1 billion phones. Can you even detect it? Dell's biggest ultra-wide monitor, the U3818W, reviewed. Our daily drivers, why AC routers boost 802.11n speeds. And does Ryzen 3 have an onboard GPU? All that and more coming up on TekThing. Thank you, patrons. Without your support via patreon.com/TekThing, Shannon and I wouldn't be able to make the show for you each and every week. Join the crew that makes TekThing possible at patreon.com/TekThing.
I'm Shannon Morse.
And I'm Patrick Norton.
And this is TekThing, where we have something useful in every single show.
And 10 days until I hopefully get this thing off my dislocated shoulder.
Yay!
Yes.
I'm so excited for you.
Yes. And then the physical therapy starts.
Yeah.
At the moment, I did something really cool. And if you've ever broken something or dislocated something, you'll understand.
Yep.
Look, kids.
Oh.
I can put my keys in my front pocket again.
Are you still typing like a Tyrannosaurus Rex?
Yes, for the most part.
Oh.
But I am supposed to extend my elbow every so often to make sure that my elbow doesn't require physical therapy along with the rest of my shoulder. Completely random thought. Intel Core i9-7900X, the 10-core 3.3 gigahertz LGA 2066 140 watt BX8067319700X. Basically, these are shipping now, right? It's a $1,000 10-core 20-thread processor. What's coming in by about the time you see this episode, AMD's Ryzen's Threadripper 1950, which is the 16-core 32-thread 3.4 gigahertz desktop processor, which is also, look at that, $9,999. Well, yeah, but I mean, think about the incredible amount of power, right?
Yeah.
You're getting a lot more cores and a lot more threads, right? Yep. 10 and 20 versus 16 and 32 for approximately the same $1,000. What has been going on is the Threadripper NDA was violated.
Yeah.
So there's at least one YouTuber out there that's published numbers on that. And the early numbers are indicating that for multi-core projects, the processor with a whole 12 more cores is doing a lot better for the money, as much as 45%. We're gonna wait till PC Per gets the NDA is leased,
yes,
the dogs of benchmarking are loosed. There's a lot of bad mixed metaphors in there, but it's been pretty amazing to see what's going on in terms of AMD pushing computing power down per price.
Yeah, totally.
You know, you could talk about, well, for single core performance, Intel has an advantage. Absolutely, but for so many of the things we do, lots and lots of cores make a big difference. Not many of you will want, well, not many of you can need a 16-core 32-thread processor, but they should be shipping this week.
Cool.
It's exciting.
I'm excited to hear about all the amazing benchmarks that people put out there.
So many amazing benchmarks.
It's gonna be awesome.
And we have an AMD Ryzen 3 update later in the show.
Yay!
In the meantime, lost one emails. I remember stage fright being a concern for phones years back, and there was an app, Stage Fright Detector. It checked if your phone was updated or vulnerable to it. Is there anything like that for Broadpwn from a trusted developer? Or another way to know if I'm vulnerable or patched?
All right, so a quick reminder about Broadpwn, or OWN if you like that. It could impact Android and iOS, and it works remotely over wireless. It does not require you to do anything. It just slips in over Wi-Fi through unpatched firmware on Broadcom BDCM 4354, 4358, and 4359 chipsets, and it can execute code in the Android kernel, so that's what makes it very scary.
Or the iOS kernel.
Or the iOS kernel, yeah. We have seen estimates as high as 1 billion phones are being vulnerable to this at this time. Every iPhone after the iPhone 5 has a vulnerable BCM chipset, and all of those devices are fine as of iOS 10.3.3. So as long as you updated your iPhone a couple weeks ago, or in the past few days, you should be okay.
In this very room just a week ago.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
As we were recording.
Android?
Android.
Not so simple.
Yeah, let's talk about Android, shall we? Yeah, it's not so simple. We know for sure that these phones have vulnerable chipsets. There's the Samsung Galaxies from the S3 all the way up to S8, inclusive. All Samsung Note 3s. There's the Nexus 5, the Nexus 6, the 6X, and the 6P. So we know that those for sure are all vulnerable.
Definitely.
So the Black Hat presentation also noted that there were BCM chipsets that were also found in some HTC and LG models as well. And there's probably dozens of other ones that we don't know about currently.
Well, you should be able to look up that information, right?
I agree. It should be really easy to find. So figuring out which ones is nearly impossible.
Right.
And I spent hours looking for data on different phones trying to find what these chipsets were.
Well, I looked for this. You looked for this. We involved a friend of ours who's a mobile developer for this. And it's like, in theory, if you have like, you know, command line root access, you can execute some commands and mostly figure out what's going on.
Yeah, if you have root. But generally, people don't have root access on their phones, and they probably aren't going to install a terminal and use dmessage to find out that information.
Oh wait, there's that app in the Google Play Store that says it'll tell you.
There are a ton of apps that say that they will. No Android app, and I tested several, will actually show you if you are vulnerable to Broadcom or show you which chipset you have.
But think of all the listing on the FCC ID certification information page.
Yeah, guess what? So on the FCC listing page, they do list a bunch of information about the FCC standardizations for those different devices, but unless there is an internal photo of the Broadcom chipset, good luck finding out which chipset is in your device.
I will say though, if you have a need for something to soothe you into sleep, just starting to read through the certification reports of the FCC website, amazing.
It is pretty interesting. You will fall asleep. So about the only reassurance that we have is that Broadpwn hasn't been seen in the wild yet.
Woohoo!
It could be, though. It could be out there. We just have not seen that clarification yet, so we don't have any proof that it's actually being seen. But if you do want to check out more information on this, you can go over to the CVE Details website, cvedetails.com, which lists the CVE, and you can run this across any updates that you receive for your phone and see if the Android updates that you have received list this as being fixed in those updates. And this also tells you about which chipsets are vulnerable. And this is also available over on the NIST website, nist.gov. So I'll put these links in the show notes below so you can read up more, and I'll also put a link to the Android Security Bulletin from July, which also had an update for this. So as long as you get that update, which I know some people won't because they're carriers, then you should be okay.
Right. Well, it's not even the carrier, right? Because it has to go from Android to the cell phone manufacturer, from the cell phone manufacturer to the carrier. And we know that a lot of cell phone manufacturers are not actively supporting older Android phones, or you know, especially older, less expensive Android phones. And nobody may actually have a complete list of the phones with the chipsets in them, because I don't think there's any particular reason for anyone to have that list.
I know a reason now. Because I was searching for hours for that information.
I kind of loved, I started digging through the support.apple.com. This is the 10.3.3 update, is the one that fixes Broadpwn. If you scroll all the way down, keep going. Keep going.
Oh, this looks so interesting.
It is interesting, actually, in a very nerdly way. But Wi-Fi, available for iPhone 5 and later, iPad 4th generation and later, and iPod Touch 6th generation. Impact, an attacker within range may be able to execute arbitrary code on the Wi-Fi chip.
Yay!
The memory corruption issue is addressed with improved memory handling. CVE 2017-9417.
Yep.
Nite Artenstein of Exodus Intelligence. I gotta say, there's moments when I love reading certain types of reports where it's like, they can remotely execute code in the kernel of your operating system, versus an attacker within range. The guy with the gun over there may be able to shoot you. You know, it's just very dry.
Yeah, it is very dry.
Because security, much like armed response, should be chill, not panicked.
That's why we call our products Wi-Fi pineapples and bash bunnies, because it's way cuter than the dry security that we usually get every day. Hack 5.
Internet Packet Disruption and Substitution Device 743, aka the big wireless ass kicker. Just, yeah, let's stick with pineapple.
Oh man. All right, so let's throw it over to our next question, which we got over on Twitter. Dan tweets, at TekThing, can you explain how upgrading to an AC router will improve even end devices? At Patrick Norton. I like how he added you on at the end there.
Well,
at Patrick Norton.
Because I was talking about, because I've actually had people like, I don't know, this makes no sense.
Yeah.
I get it, right?
A lot of things that happen on routers makes no sense.
Absolutely. what she
putting
said.
it out there.
Yeah, I mean, here's my first thought. One, it definitely works, right? I dumped my 802.11n router after reading smallnetbuilder.com's delightful, does an AC router improve end device performance? So Tim Higgins, who runs Small Net Builder, which is an extraordinary website for router reviews and NASs and all sorts of cool stuff. This was way back in 2014, and I was, thinking that 802.11n sucked.
Yeah.
And I was right. But what was amazing is in his synthetic testing, there was no bump in performance between 802.11ac and 802.11n, but people kept reporting it in the forums. So he basically drug out a bunch of boxes and a laptop with 802.11n, and you got stuff like this, 2.4 gigahertz downlink throughput performance. So he got his best 802.11n router, and the worst of the 1900 AC routers was 58% faster, and the best of them at 2.4 gigahertz was 321% faster than the 802.11n router. And he did that for 2.4 gigahertz uplinks and 5 gigahertz downlinks. So as high as like 400% improvement. For example, there's that Linksys WRT 1900AC, 403% faster. The Asus RT-AC 68U, 393% faster. Those are big numbers.
Very
Those
big.
are huge numbers.
Yes.
Now the range wasn't necessarily extended, but 802.11n performance went way up.
Interesting.
At the time, Tim wasn't really sure how AC routers did that.
Yeah.
And that was like 3 years ago now. 3 years ago? 2 years ago?
2014, that's 3 years.
September 20, wow, almost exactly 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So in the 3 or 4 years since, 3 years, we just talked about that.
3 years.
I'm going to remember that eventually. There's been a lot of conjecture, but the best kind of educated guesses I've heard is that the beamforming on 802.11ac routers, i.e., well, you see the I can't put my hand up here. Could you do the
yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, when they have
the
like
beamforming.
Yeah,
with the
they have
different
like
antennas.
That's why they have like 9 antennas, so they can use those antennas to aim the signal towards the client. Instead of radiating equally in all directions. So apparently the beamforming is particularly helpful for 802.11 performance. That's my best guess.
Okay.
To be honest, at the time, 2014, I didn't care why. I just wanted Wi-Fi to suck less in the back third of my house.
Yeah, that's true.
Upgrading to a new router, as much as I didn't want to upgrade to a new router, fixed the problem. So sounds ridiculous, doesn't make sense, absolutely works in the real world.
That's awesome.
I'm just saying. Not as good as Ethernet. We talked about that a couple weeks ago.
I've read plenty of code compilations from developers where they're like, they put a comment in and it says, I don't know why this works, but it does. Don't mess with this code. It's the same thing with routers. I don't know why it works, but it does. Just don't mess with it.
Yeah, move it to the center of the house. Elevate it. Don't overthink it. A bunch of folks asked, what was that the Windows version of iPerf I've been using to test on my home network? It is called Network Performance Test. It is available in the Windows App Store.
Ah, cool.
So yeah.
Very nice.
It works. It's much simpler than setting up a bunch of Linux machines to run iPerf. Eero 2 mesh router review coming next week. If you got questions about mesh routers, do you need one? What do they do? How do you set them up? All that good stuff. Do us a favor, email ask@tekthing.com. Luke emailed ask@tekthing.com, what are your daily drive computers? I've seen you use mostly Dell machines and wondered what you would recommend. I'm currently using a Macbook Pro Retina 13 running OS 10 with Linux VMs, VirtualBox, Debian, Ubuntu, and Kali. But after issues with VirtualBox and Wi-Fi, etc., I've been considering going for a full-time Linux machine. What is your primary OS and why? Any help would be much appreciated. Many thanks, Luke.
Yay!
Yay!
So I would say that I have 2 actual daily drivers. I use a Windows 10 laptop. It's a Razer Blade laptop, mainly for editing and work-related stuff, and that's a laptop that I purchased. The one that you see here is a review unit that Alienware sent me, so eventually I'll be showing this off more on the show. Adobe Premiere Pro is not available on Linux, so I keep a Windows 10 machine around for that, plus, of course, video games and a lot of software testing for the show and for Hack5 and stuff like that. My other daily driver is the Dell XPS 13. It's Linux Ubuntu 17.04, which is not LTS, a long-term version, but I was curious about it, so I installed it, and it broke a few things, but that's okay.
Some of the things fix themselves.
Some of the things fix themselves magically. I use Ubuntu because usually if there's a program that I want to use on Linux, developers have tested its functionality in Ubuntu, so chances are it's going to work out of the box,
right.
Which I don't find to be the case with other Linux distros all the time. I also like Ubuntu's ease of use in the terminal, so if I want to create a quick script or I want to access stuff that's not necessarily available via the GUI, or maybe it's faster to do it in the terminal, right. It's very, very easy for me to do so. So I love Ubuntu. It's been my favorite for a very long time.
It's nice.
It's nice.
Man, I roll with Windows like 98% of the time, split between this Dell XPS 13 and a couple of homebrew desktops, you know, one of which you've heard me talk about. We did a build video on the AMD Ryzen 7, which is gracefully tucked inside a fantastic Carbide Series Quiet 600Q inverse ATX full tower case, which I love and paid for out of my own grubby little pockets. But yeah, that machine did amazing things to how fast I can render video. And then my desktop at home, and there's actually a GTX 1070 inside of that machine. And at home, I'm running an Intel Core i7-6700 in a NFC Systems S4-Mini enclosure.
That thing is so cute.
I love this case.
It's teeny tiny, and it works awesomely.
And it's pretty, although mine's orange. So yeah, and that's got a 750 Ti at home, which is more than enough for basic 2560 by 1440 gaming.
I also have a desktop at home, not a laptop, and that
You said laptop.
I always say laptop, but I just slur my words, and I'm Southern,
No, but
so
that
people
time
don't
you
hear it.
did a P. It's very good.
I was trolling the trolls.
I know.
Laptop.
I was making sure the trolls saw you.
So I have a desktop at home, but unfortunately it is not as fast as the Razer Blade, so I use the Razer Blade all the time now instead of my desktop.
Nothing says desktop computing like a year-old system that's beaten by a laptop.
Yep, so true. I think I need to do another build.
Yes.
Yeah, it's time.
Got a question? Are you curious to see us review something on TekThing? Got a tip or an idea? Fire them on out to ask@tekthing.com, please. Or you can tweet at TekThing, at Snubs, or at Patrick Norton. And hey, if you want to be part of the crew that makes TekThing possible, please contribute to the show at patreon.com/TekThing.
We love Dell's U3415W. It's got that 3440 by 1440 resolution, 3800R radius. So beautiful. 60 hertz, and it's roughly 110 pixels per inch. There are 4 of them here in the warehouse counting, and there's probably going to be more eventually. There's Patrick's, my husband has one at home, and then there's 2 in the hack shop. I have one at home, and now there's a new 38-inch version. Patrick completely cleared off his desk so that he was able to fit this thing up there. So Patrick, what do you think? Did you like it?
I didn't have to quite clear my desk off.
Just clear everything.
But I did have to shove my speakers a little bit off the desktop to get in there. It is big, right?
It's massive.
So let's be clear. This is not a gaming-centric monitor, right? There's no AMD FreeSync or NVIDIA G-Sync. This is more for professionals and creatives than gamers. The whole point of an ultra-wide, whether you're a Photoshop geek or a programmer, putting lots of information up on the screen at the same time, side by side.
Right.
And Shannon will verify here, it is really sweet for gaming too.
It's so pretty.
It's like cinematic in scale.
It's gorgeous.
So Dell's newest UltraSharp ultrawide is the U3818DW. It's called 38, but it's actually 37.5 inches, and it has a slightly higher resolution, 3840 by 1600. That's 400 more pixels horizontally, 160 more vertically. But it gives that 3.5-inch bigger monitor, 111 pixels per inch, which is pretty much the same pixel density as the U3415 and 17.
Yeah.
They have the same 21:9 aspect ratio. The 38-inch monitor, or the 37.5-inch monitor, is running at 350 candela. That's a little bit brighter, like 50 CD brighter than the 34-inch monitors. I don't think you're actually going to notice with a Mark I eyeball.
Yeah.
Monitor's edge lit. Brightness was incredibly consistent on our test model, and there were no dead pixels. It's an UltraSharp. Color is very, very good, and I'm pretty sure that somebody at Dell makes sure everything is perfect before it goes out, and if not, they're just that good. I've been using these. Like, I know video editors that use these, I know Photoshop pros that use these, I know gamers that use these. They're just an excellent monitor. The radius on a curved monitor is a big deal to me. It's like the measurement of how curved it is. I really like the 3415W, had a very gentle 3800R curve, or 3800 millimeter radius. Way, way less aggressive than the 1900R on the 3417W, which almost felt like it was so curved, if I was too close, I could see the tops of the Windows boxes looking looking kind of like smiley faces. The 3818W has a 2300 millimeter radius, but it doesn't feel nearly as aggressive as that 1900 millimeter radius on the 3417W, possibly because it's wider. You know, it's not as flat as that 3800R 3415W. So when I say gentle, I don't go, crap, why are my windows curved every few minutes, which is one of the first reactions I have for the first like week or so using the 3417W. I remember being like, you know, to make a snubs face. It's fairly new to
get used to.
Yeah, and once you get used to it, you don't really notice it. You'll never notice it gaming or watching videos, but if you have like big boxes open on the screen, you might be like, my line is curved. Didn't have that feeling using the 38-inch or the U38 or the 38 widescreen.
So it might actually work out better for people that are doing editing and stuff like that, especially if you're working with photography.
Yeah, well, it's funny. Talk about that in a second.
Okay.
I should go over, there's tons of connectivity on this. DisplayPort 1.2, 2 HDMI 2.0, HDCP 2.2 is supported, a pair of USB 3.0 upstream, a pair of USB 3.0 downstream, another pair on the side, and then there's another pair of USB 3.0 downstream on the bottom, and a USB Type-C port that does DPI 1.2 power delivery and USB 2.0. So the monitor can roll 100 watts to your laptop over USB-C. That's cool.
That's really cool.
TLDR, this is the U3415 or U3417, but bigger and more expensive. $1,500 MSRP, sells for $1,170 on Dell.com. The 3415W sells for $800 at Dell.com and $670 from various third parties. So the question is, how much is 3.5 inches and a few more pixels?
It is, for me, it is worth waiting until they release a new model so that that price goes down.
My favorite
That's what it's worth.
Yeah, I still, you know, if you want something bigger, it's, you know, the pixels per inch are the same, so it's not like the pixels are going to look bigger and therefore the monitor, you know, scale is bigger. But if you're looking for something more than 34 inches, this is a way to go, ladies and gentlemen.
So pretty.
Yeah, and like we said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, probably one more 3415 floating around our universe. Yeah. We like the curved widescreen monitors.
We do. Another high DPI monitor trick, but you need to have Windows Creator Update 1703 or later, which Patrick's laptop still does not. Nelson writes, hi Patrick and Shannon, love the show. Zebulon had an issue with his high DPI screen and incompatible software. You may know this, but with the Windows 10 Creators Update 1703, you can customize how Windows scales older applications. So cool. Right-click on the application executable, select Properties, select the Compatibility tab, find the checkbox Override High DPI Scaling Behavior, and check it. Select the drop-down list and change it to System. Windows will now use bitmap scaling for that application. The result is no more tiny icons. However, the buttons in that app may look a little bit soft due to the scaling. Note, System Enhanced can be used as well, but I have seen issues with it for 3D software. I hope this helps and keep doing what you do best. Great show from Nelson. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That's awesome.
So if you have an older version of Windows and you go into, like I found, a Firefox executable file and I right-click to go to compatibility, and you can go into disable display scaling on high DPI settings if your display scaling makes everything look squirrely. And on my desktop, which does have the appropriate version of Windows, you have the option of overriding high DPI scaling and changing it from the application to the operating system. And to give you an idea what it actually looks like when it's turned on, check this out. This is Photoshop 11, and props to Nelson for getting this picture for us. These are the tiny icons on his desktop. And then when you turn on scaling,
hey!
The icons get bigger.
My old person eyes can see everything again.
Nelson, and thank you so much for the screen captures on that one. That was a huge get. And so one more option for getting your older applications to behave if you have the latest version of Windows, which someday I will even have on my long-suffering laptop.
If you have a tip to share with the audience, make sure to email us, ask@TekThing.com, or you can tweet @Snubs or @PatrickNorton as well.
Yo, posted on Facebook.com/TekThing. Y'all forgotten to mention that for non-gamers, the Intel ones come with built-in graphics that's much more capable and affordable, built-in as in free, than the non-existent equivalent Ryzen, unfortunately. Keep up the good work.
Oh,
it's
that's
true. Yeah.
Wow, I didn't even think about that.
Actually, I was talking to Ryan about this. He's like, he didn't really point it out because he was so excited about the multi-core performance on that. It is true. If you are building a Ryzen 3 powered system, you're going to need to recycle your old GPU or buy one to finish a Ryzen 3 build.
Yeah.
And that chips away at some of the cost advantage if you are not a gamer or don't want to buy a GPU.
Wow.
There you have it.
Yeah, that's a good thing to remember for budgeting with new builds. So keep that in mind. And remember, once in a while, put down your phone, step away from the screen, close the laptop, and do something analog. Like you probably figured out mine from my awesome t-shirt that I got at the Zelda Symphony of the Goddesses in San Francisco, which was amazing.
Was it?
Oh my goodness.
Zelda with an orchestra?
It was Zelda with an orchestra. There was a full orchestra. There was a chorus in the back. Everything, a composer, a conductor, oh man, it's beautiful. And they played different featurettes from each of the video games, and I believe they played 6 to 8 different video game overtures. Each one lasted between like 6 minutes to 8 minutes long, and they showed you different scenes from each of the games to kind of move along with the music. It was
Those
beautiful.
harps up front.
Oh my gosh, it was so pretty, and oh, I'm so glad I got to go. If you ever get a chance to go, buy tickets because they sell out. They sell out really fast. So I'm really happy I was able to go. There were cosplayers at the orchestra.
From 8-bit to the orchestra pit.
And man, everybody there was a huge fan, and every single time they played a really popular song, the entire crowd was just like, yeah! Oh man, I was feeling it. I was feeling it, the energy. It was so good. So if you really enjoy listening to video game music, Zelda Symphony of the Goddesses, look it up. It was so worth it. It was so good.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Patrick Norton.
I'm Shannon Morse.
We'll see you next week on TekThing.
I always loved like oboes and wind instruments myself.
Love them too, but the thing that stuck out was being like, he started practicing on the front porch, and I just remember being like, hey mom, really sorry about trumpet. Just started howling.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh,
you understand now.
I understand so many things. By the way, never underestimate the power of shutting everything down and powering it back up again to fix random tech fails.
Yep. Apparently that'll fix things, especially when your entire studio decides to disconnect itself.
I'm looking at you, Switcher.
Dang, Switcher.
And you, Router.
Black magic. What's going on? Ah.
Mayhem.
Here I was like, oh, let's buy a new one. Nah, just restart it.
Yeah, I'm like, unplug it and let it sit for 5 minutes.
Oh, I can't go 4K yet.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.